This is West Volusia Historical Society oral history recording with Juanita McNeil. The interviewer is Mary Lou Peffer. I'm a volunteer with the Society. Today is November 20th, 2024, and we're filming at the Burgess Pavilion on the campus of the DeLand Memorial Hospital and Veterans Museum. How long have you lived in West Volusia, and where did you live prior to that?
I have lived in West Volusia for 60 years. Prior
60
to
years.
that,
Okay.
60 years.
Okay.
Prior to coming to West Volusia, I lived in Kissimmee a few years.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated from high school, I had a job offer in Kissimmee, so I lived there a couple of years before coming to West Volusia.
West Volusia.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been here for 60 years, but where were you born and where did you live as a child?
I was born in Archie, Florida, and that's a small city near Gainesville in Alachua County.
Okay.
And after that, we moved to Williston, Florida, in Levy County, another small country area. So I lived in Williston on a farm with my parents.
How many children were in your family?
There were five of us in our family. 4 boys and me, the only girl.
The only girl. Were you first, second, third, last?
I was near the youngest. I had 3 brothers, older, me, and then a brother younger than me.
Did they spoil you, or did you spoil them? Or how did that work?
They spoiled me because I had to do what they did. For instance, I had to play boy games, shooting marbles and climbing trees and those kinds of things. I can remember having one doll in my life because it was a girl thing, and I had to do the boy things in my life.
So you were a tomboy from the get-go.
I was a tomboy from the beginning, yes, I
surely
was.
were. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your life up there in Williston on that farm. You said there was the term you used when we were talking the other day called sharecroppers. Would you explain that to us?
Yes, we were sharecroppers, and what that means is that we lived on the farm. Initially, we did not own the property. It was a big farm, at least 300 and some acres that we lived on and worked that farm. We did the work on the farm. I can remember my mother initially would follow, we had horses and we had a plow. She would hold on to the plow and make the rows for the vegetables seeds to be planted. Later, we got machineries like tractors and those kinds of things to help with farming.
Now, what period of time was that at the beginning?
I can't remember the period of time, but we were old enough to work on the farm. We had to work on that farm. My brothers and me spent our lives working on that farm. Working on the farm was more important than going to school. We missed an awful lot of school because when time to work on the farm, we did not go to school. We planted watermelons, corn, peanuts, greens, beans, and okra.
Wow.
And we had fields of watermelons to the point that big trucks used to come at the end of the field, and we would load the watermelons on these big trucks. When peanut seasons came, they had finally got machineries to pick the peanuts and went to the factory. The same with corn. It became a huge industry for us there. Now, we did not do all of the harvesting by ourselves. Other family members and friends would take turns. When time for watermelons, they all would come and help with the watermelons. And when time for our farm, the same thing for them. They decided where we're going to go to Uncle so and help him with his harvesting.
Right.
So that's how we got help to do the things that we needed to do. As I said, we had hogs, cows, and horses. The same thing would happen when time for clean the hogs. We would have a hog killing day, and everybody would come and kill the hogs. And same thing if they wanted to do a cow. We had plenty of food. We were never hungry.
But this was a lot of work for your family.
It was a lot of work.
And you did not get the proceeds from the sale of all
No,
of this. How
we
did
did
that
not.
work?
At the end of the season of a certain crop, the white man would come and said, "We did well."
Now, was the white man the owner of the property initially?
Yes, we did well. However, we didn't make money. We don't have extra money. We did get a little money to live on, but there was no sums of money from the crop. There were no bank accounts, none of that. He said, we broke even. That's the word he used to use. We broke even this year. Mm-hmm. But at the end, at some point, we owned the property. He would say it went toward the land, or it went toward the machinery, it went toward this, but never $5,000 for your work this week, or this for this crop, mm-hmm. or $1,000. A little money to go to the grocery stores and buy maybe clothes or whatever we needed, mm-hmm. but never a big sum of money. Yet we could see these big trucks loaded with watermelons. Mm-hmm. Pulling off, and we knew crops were good and we did a good job. But at the end, we didn't have the money to show for that. Just a little, just enough money to get by. We never thought that we were poor because we always had food to eat, because we grew the food on the farm. Mm-hmm. And we just had enough money just to get by with, just enough to get by, but never enough to put in the bank. Yeah. For savings and that kind of thing.
So the man that owned the farm was putting some of that, what would have been money for you, towards the sale, towards your eventually owning the property?
Yes, we finally, yes. We owned the property.
Were your parents still alive by the time that took place?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, they were. Good. Yes, they were.
Does that farm still belong in your family?
Yes.
It does?
Yes, it does. Family members still live there on that farm. We call it the neighborhood now. Oh, okay. Yes, we call it the neighborhood because grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they're mm-hmm. living there now. They're mm-hmm. not farming the property.
None of them farm it?
No, they're not farming. No, they had enough farming.
A lot of hard work, yes. I'm sure. Long hours. So you said you grew on this farm, and mm-hmm. sometimes you couldn't go to school because your time working on the farm was more important.
It was more important.
But when you did go to school, what was that like, being in elementary and maybe junior and senior high school in your youth?
It was fun. We enjoyed going to school. My older brothers did not go to school often. My oldest brother was deaf. Mm-hmm. He could not hear or talk. So at an early age, he went to the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. So he spent in St. Augustine. So he spent his time there and would come home when school is out during the summer. Mm-hmm. The other two older brothers did not graduate from high school. I graduated from high school and my younger brother graduated from high school. The other two continued on the farm and working there as far as they're concerned.
What were your favorite academic subjects, and did you like to play sports of any type?
I did. I enjoyed playing basketball. I enjoyed playing basketball.
You were a tall girl.
Yes, I enjoyed playing basketball. When we first started playing basketball at Williston Vocational High School, we played on a clay court. I don't know, it wasn't paved. We didn't have a gym. It was Williston Vocational High School, the only high school in Volusia County.
You mean Levy County.
I'm sorry, Levy County. The only high school in Levy County. And we didn't have a gym at the time. Students were transported from Brunson, Florida, Cedar Key, Chiefland, and Otter Creek to this one black high school in Levy County.
Was there a white high school in the county as well?
There was a white high school in Levy County, in Williston.
In Williston. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Williston High School. And we were called Williston Vocational High School.
Interesting. Yeah. When you were a student in elementary school, you were sort of preparing to go to college. Was that your goal at that time? And did you actually succeed in doing that?
That was my goal, yes, because I had worked so hard on the farm, and I wanted to leave. I wanted something better in life. I often thought there must be something better than working in the fields. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to graduate from high school, and I did. And when I graduated from high school, I got a scholarship at Bethune Cookman College.
In Daytona Beach.
In Daytona Beach, mm-hmm. Yes. And I was able to go to college. And my family made sacrifices for me to go. They understood what life was like for us. Being the only girl, they wanted something better for mm-hmm. me. So the sacrifice was made from my parents as well as my brothers to make sure that I went to college, and I did, and graduated from college in 1964.
That must have been a very interesting experience for you.
It was an interesting experience. It was different. It was something I never thought that I would be able to do, knowing my background, realizing my parents did not graduate from high school or go to high school, realizing two brothers did not graduate from high school. The only person that got a degree in high school was my oldest brother, who was deaf, from Florida School for the Deaf and Blind in St. Augustine. So they wanted something better for mm-hmm. me, and they made the sacrifice.
Well, you said
so that I could do that.
You and your younger brother were able to graduate from high school,
yes.
but not the older brothers.
No.
When you moved to Daytona Beach in the 60s, mm-hmm. it was a happening place, I think. I recall.
Yes.
There was a community college there by then. And but Bethune Cookman had a very unique history. Could you just tell us briefly how that college came to be?
It was exciting to go to Bethune Cookman College, knowing the background of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune and the sacrifices that she made and how she started that school. The history behind going to Bethune Cookman College mm-hmm. was amazing, and I certainly wanted to be a part of that history and how she started Bethune Cookman College. So that meant an awful lot to me.
With $2 in her pocket or
$2,
something.
Yes.
And yet that college today has thrived and has become world-renowned in what it provides
absolutely.
For predominantly black students, but anybody is welcome.
Yeah, everybody is welcome,
That's
yes.
True. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you were growing up and going maybe through college in your early years still, maybe your transitional years from teenager to adult, mm-hmm. were there any particular customs or traditions that you experienced, or maybe with your church or organizations, that really stand out today as being significant? Or
no, I can't think of anything. That was just being treated fairly. I never got in any arguments or fights about race. I knew there was a difference. I knew that we were treated differently.
In your community,
but
in the town, in your community?
I managed to get through it mm-hmm. without. I never demonstrated at any time with any of the demonstrations that took place. For whatever reasons, I just didn't participate in any of that. But I knew others did, and I knew the reason, and I supported the reason, but I personally did not get involved in any of that kind of thing.
You had a different objective at that time.
I know who I wanted to be. I know what I wanted to do in life, and I just stayed focused with that.
That's important.
Yes,
If
very.
you have a strong goal, you have to be focused, that's
Yes.
for sure. Well, moving on, you met a young man and got married and had a daughter. Would you like to tell us how that took place?
Yes, the young man that I met lived in Williston.
Oh, okay.
And we went to the same high school.
Oh,
yes.
good. Okay.
We went to the same high school, and we met in high school. When he graduated from high school, he went to the Army, and he went to Florida. He went to school in Jacksonville and got his degree, and then he was called to serve in the Army. When he left the Army, he met a friend from Lake Helen, and when he left the Army, he followed this friend to Lake Helen, and he moved there. Well, I was at Kissimmee teaching, and knowing where he was, I came to Lake Helen, Volusia County. That's how I got to Volusia County. So Ken and I got married, and we were married for 37 years, and we had a daughter named Kendra. So that's how I got to Volusia County, following Kendra McNeil.
I see.
Yes.
And Kendra is named after her dad.
Kendra's named after her dad.
I understand she's had a wonderful career. Tell us a little bit about
Yes,
Kendra.
Kendra has had a wonderful career. She went to Bethune. She initially went to Gainesville, and she was partying and having a good time. And we decided that no, you need to leave Gainesville and go
University
to
of Florida.
University of Florida. And of course, she was close to Archie. So she got with family members there, and she spent more time in Archie with her families and partying and doing all the things that young people do, most of them, not all of them. And we decided, no, Kendra, you need to come home. And you can come home, or you can go to Bethune Cookman College. And she did, and graduated from Bethune Cookman College. And her career now is in insurance. She sells insurance. She's an agent with Florida Blue, and lives in Orlando. She's never gotten married, which no children either, but she's our daughter that I love very much.
And
yes.
You told me earlier before we started the interview that she wanted to know what you were wearing today so she could approve of your outfit.
Yes, she wanted to know what I was wearing. She was telling me, Mama, now don't say this and don't say that, and pronounce it and pronounce that.
Typical daughter.
Yeah, oh, is she? Yeah. It appears that she's the mother now, and I'm the child.
I think that happens sometimes as we grow older.
Yes.
So I have a daughter that's, likes to boss me around a little bit too.
Okay.
So. I guess it's, fair play after all those years of telling them what to do. So.
Sure.
So you became a teacher.
Became a teacher.
And that's always been your career?
It was always been my career to become a teacher, and I was got my certification in elementary education from Bethune Cookman College. And so I taught elementary education, first grade for a while in Kissimmee, and when I came to Volusia County, I had a job at Dempsey Brewster and taught first grade there for a couple of years. And I got that job there because a teacher was out on maternity leave. So it wasn't, when she decided to come back from maternity leave, I didn't have a job. So I had to find a job somewhere else. So I was hired at Euclid Elementary School. It was school for children with special needs. So I got the job at Euclid's, teaching special education students. And I was not certified. So after getting the job with the certification in elementary education, I had to be certified in special education.
Sure.
So I went to Stetson and got my certification in special education in order to be able to keep this job at Euclid. So I had to go back to school and get a certification in special education, and I did that.
At the time you were in Kissimmee and then later in DeLand, was early 60s or mid 60s, and I know Florida didn't integrate their schools until 1967 or 68. So did you experience that transition personally, and what are your thoughts on how that
Yes, when I
out?
was in Kissimmee, when I got the first job I got in Kissimmee, it was a high school, Kissimmee High School, all black, segregated school, and it was from first grade through 12th. So I had a job teaching first grade at this all black high school, segregated school. Then they needed a teacher at Thacker Elementary, and they asked me to go there to Thacker Elementary, and that was a wonderful experience. My first experience in integration.
Okay, that was an all-white school.
All-white school.
Were you the first person to integrate?
First person to integrate Thacker Elementary, and I was welcomed warmly. It was a good experience for me because it was a first for me and first for the school to have me, and I was welcomed and treated well there by the students. Of course, they were first grade, so certainly it did make a difference with them. But the parents and the staff welcomed me there, and I felt warm and welcome and helpful, and they helped me with the integration because it was an experience. So that was good for me.
That's great that you had a positive experience
Yes,
there instead of a negative
yes.
one. And they integrated the high school there in Kissimmee at the same time,
Yes,
but
they
you were
did.
not part of that
I
school
was not
at that
part of
point,
that. No,
at school.
I was not part of that.
And then when you came to DeLand, did you experience any other problems with integration, or had that
No,
already been solved?
Even when I went to Dempsey Brewster, I remember there were 3 first grade classes, and both of the other 2 teachers were elderly. They kind of took me on as their child, their daughter, and helping me, and the school welcomed me there at Dempsey Brewster School. Mr. Thornton was the principal there. He was wonderful, and I felt really safe and welcome and willing to do my job, and they were willing to help me if I needed help with that at Dempsey Brewster.
I know that once you taught, excuse me, that you taught for several years, you became a elementary school principal or a special needs school principal. Would you tell us how that worked out for you and how you got into that? I knew you had a certification, but then how did you become the principal?
Well,
there?
when I was at Euclid, I was administrative assistant there, and which means yet I was a classroom teacher and administrative assistant, so I was doing 2 jobs. The person before me as principal didn't do as well as he could have. So I was doing the classroom teacher in room 7 at the end of the walkway way down, as well as doing administrative things. And one day the supervisor from the county decided, Juanita, you're doing all the work. It's not fair that you're doing the teaching job and administrative job. He said, we're going to appoint you as principal. And I said, I don't have the certification. He said, we know that, but we're going to put you in this position to be principal of this school, and then you go back and get your certification. So they appointed me principal, and we finally, from Euclid, but before that, they built Blue Lake Elementary and closed Boston Avenue School. And when they closed Boston Avenue School, it was a better school than Euclid. It was bigger, the facilities were better, the bathrooms were not designed for students with disability, but they were better than what we had, and they could renovate them to fit our needs, and they did that. So we left Euclid and went to Boston Avenue School. then I became principal at Boston Avenue
And what
School.
year was that?
I can't remember the year that was that I became principal at Boston Avenue School. I'm not sure the date on that.
Was
But-
it the 1970s or 80s?
It was in the 84.
84. Okay.
Yes, 1984.
So Boston Avenue, I remember growing up in DeLand, if you lived on the east side of town, you went to Boston Avenue School. And with Woodland Boulevard being the division, if you went to the, if you lived on the west side of town, you went to Wisconsin Avenue, which eventually became Dempsey Brewster School, named after the principal that had been there for many years. And then the black school was Euclid.
Euclid, yes.
And you said that they had made Euclid into a special needs school when
Yes.
you were teaching there, but then eventually it became a regular elementary school again, I think. Did it not, before they moved into Stark or some other school?
I think it did, yes.
Yeah, I
yes.
wasn't sure about that history, but anyhow, so here you are in an old school, but a nice school that had a lot of facilities and was more handicapped accessible for a lot of different kinds of children. So tell us, I think this is one of the interesting things about your career, because I know people that worked with you, and I worked with you sometimes too, but it was a really, I don't know, to me it was a wonderful situation for children that needed this special interest and care and everything.
Yes.
So I'd like you to tell us more about that.
Yes. It was, as I said, they did renovations to fit our needs as far as the bathrooms. We had a kitchen, a classroom. We had a home living teacher, so we had a teacher in that home living facility that would allow students to come to do laundry, to cook, make sandwiches, not a full meal, to fold clothes after they're done, washed, put in the dryer, sort clothes, and fold them. And what we were teaching, life skills that they may need as they get older. And our level of students were severe. They were severe, and some were able to go out in the community and work. So we had lots of wheelchairs. We had students who were on feeding tubes. We had 2 nurses, an RN and an LPN. That lets you know the severity of their condition. And some of them, as I said, used feeding tubes. They were not toilet trained. They had to have a extra set of clothes at all times. So if they had an accident, we could change them. And if they had an accident, we did not send the sore clothes home. We would do the laundry in school because they had their names on them or the room number on it. And we would do the laundry in school, which was a teaching moment for those students who could learn to do these kinds of things. They learned to fold towels. We used a lot of towels for bathing and showering, or if they were eating, we would put a towel around their neck so they wouldn't soil their clothes. But we would do the laundry there. And that towel went back to room 4, room 5, or whoever. And that was a learning experience to do the laundry, fold, and take it to the correct room that it needed to be. Those are learning skills for the students. We had a horticultural program. We had gardening, planting flowers. We had a work program, sorting papers, folding papers. Quality Quick Print used to bring their work to our school, and our student would sort their work for them. We had a job training person who would take the kids to Publix, would hire them, would allow them to come and work and do things. For instance, if they was in the grocery stores and they would line the canned goods up, on the shelves, allow them some work skills, and some of them had jobs after graduation. We had preschool as well as they could stay there until age 22. At age 22, they would graduate. When they graduated, we had a formal graduation, cap and gown, pomp and circumstance, a big program that we invite the school board to come and be part of this graduation, cap and gown, even if they were in a wheelchair, even if they needed assistance walking down the aisle, and they got on stage, they got their diploma, and the superintendent would give them a diploma. They had what other students had at Boston Avenue School.
And you did other things. You had proms and picnics.
We had a prom. We would always have a prom at the end of the year. They had tuxedos, they had gowns, we had a band to come and play for them. We would have Special Olympics that we would participate in that, a day for fun and games. We had everything any other high school had at our school. The other thing about Boston Avenue School, with the population that we served, lots of hands-on, we were never charged or suspected abuse. Never.
Never.
We had an open door policy. Anyone could come to our school at any time and take a tour. You don't call, can I come to your school and see, visit? Walk in the front door, I would like to visit. And someone, and if I'm there, I would take them on a tour. And I thought that kind of thing kept the staff honest and open to people coming in at any time, and you're doing what you're supposed to do with the children, because you never know who's going to come to visit.
Right.
And this also allowed different organizations to make donations to our school, because they would come and see a need or something we could buy or use, and we got donations often. We would allow the Rotary Club or any other club to meet at our school. Why don't you meet here? We have a place for your meeting. We will serve you breakfast. And they could see the children working and doing whatever they could do as part of their learning skills. So
that lasted for a number of years.
Well, I was there for 20 years.
20 years, yeah. And that was a good program. But then, at some point, it was determined by the school board, or perhaps with the state or federal, I don't know how far up it went, to mainstream ESE children out of schools like Boston Avenue.
Yeah.
And I know you may have had strong feelings about that. You retired at that time.
Yes, I did. They said the kids were isolated and they need to be integrated with other students. So they closed Boston Avenue School, and the students went to other high school, DeLand High School, or the new school that was built in Orange City University, or if they were middle-aged schools, they went to a middle school. However, they were still isolated. They were not into the classroom beside a regular or normal child. They were still in an extra building somewhere else. The things that they missed was their own graduation, their own prom, the work skills that they learned. They didn't have that homemade room to learn to do the laundry, to do the cooking. Work brought in for them to sort, or given an opportunity to go to Publix or Winn-Dixie or somewhere else, and hands-on job skills that they learned. Those are the things that they missed from that. I'm sure something was done. However, it wasn't at the extent that we provided at Boston Avenue School.
So it may have been a good idea, maybe not.
Yes.
But I guess you would have to sort of, interview each child or each
Yes.
child's parents or something
Right.
to see what their effect was with
Yeah.
it. But
Sure.
I'm glad you did what you did at Boston Avenue
I'm
for so
glad
many years. You really were an outstanding principal and well loved and highly thought of by the community.
Well, the other thing that I used to do, I would volunteer in a classroom often. They didn't know I was coming. I would find time and spend the entire day in a classroom. That allowed me to see what the staff was doing and what the students were doing.
Are you talking about in the mainstream schools?
No, at Boston Avenue
Boston
School,
Avenue,
yes.
okay.
Now I just show up. I said, "This is my day in your room."
Uh-huh.
And they knew I would come in because I had been in other classrooms. And this allowed me to evaluate the staff. At the end of the year, you have evaluations.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I got to know the students, hands-on with the students, and observe staff and what they are doing and how they're doing. I learned from them, and I was able to offer suggestions if I had anything to offer. But mostly, I learned more from the students and staff there than I was able to offer them. So it was a great experience for me.
That's great.
But they knew I want to say someone is watching, but they're being observed.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, some staff don't have to be, but there are some staff, regardless, they need that someone to observe them every once in a while. They need to know that somebody may be watching. If you had in mind of not doing the appropriate thing, then you need to, because you never know when Juanita McNeil is going to walk in and say, "My day to volunteer in your room."
And sometimes some guidance too.
Yes,
if you saw they had a
absolutely.
weak spot, you could help
Yes,
them improve
yeah.
that. Yeah. So.
Yes.
Well, after your retirement, I know you belong to a lot of professional organizations and still do, but the ones that you felt that were most memorable to you, such as the YMCA, how did that work out? Because I remember you said something about them getting involved with your
Yes,
school when you were still at Boston Avenue.
Yes, the YMCA was very important to me. I was on the board. In fact, I was chair of the board a couple of years at the YMCA, and that was very interesting to me to be a part of that group, because there were so many business people were on that board, and that was a way to interact with business people and find out what they had to offer Boston Avenue School. And they did offer an awful lot to Boston Avenue School. The business people, we're looking for a job. We have a student that we like to place at your facility. Do you think that this person could work out? Visit our school and observe and see. Do you have a job for them? Maybe not now, but can we train them? What skills do we need to teach them to be able to work at your facility after graduation, or even now? We provide the transportation. We'll come. We're not going to just send a student. We send somebody with them to train and be with them. So that was very important to me, to be a part of that organization because of the people that were part of the organization.
And they learned a lot when they came to your school too.
Yes, they did. They people who feared, or I don't want to say fear, a little reluctant about going to a facility with all these students with disabilities. They had an opportunity to come and feel, and they would say, "Oh, I didn't know what I was going to see. I didn't know what to expect," and they got to see what people with disabilities or lack of what they learn or don't learn, how to communicate with them, that it's not always verbal communication. It's eye contact, it's facial expression, it's moving the hand. Often you're looking at the person's face and you're asking them something. They may be moving their finger or twitching or something, trying to say something, or letting you know that I understand or don't understand. There's so many ways to communicate with people with disabilities that you have to be aware of. The other thing is that you have to be patient. You can't ask a question and expect it right away. You know, wait, give them a chance to process what you're saying. You may need to ask in a different way. You may need to touch, feel, would help a person to get their attention, or move, or whatever. That, you know, rather than always looking for the verbal.
Like
That
touch
may
their
not
arm,
be the verbal.
touch their arm or something like
Touch
that.
their arms, yes. It may not be the verbal. It may be a hand squeeze that they're saying something to you, and you need to give them time to figure it out, or you need time to figure it out, whatever it is that you need.
Well, I don't know where those children are today, but I'm sure the experience they had being at Boston Avenue were still, you know, in a good place in their minds and in their memory. So I was just wanting to know that you've had a lot of experiences as a child, as an adult, as a mom, as a teacher, as a principal, and if you had the chance to go somewhere at a high school or something and talk to young people today, what kind of message would you like to tell them about integration or about special needs children or just about their own lives and how they can, you know, plan their own goals like you did?
I would suggest that they stay focused on whatever it is that you want to do. I would suggest respecting the other person's opinions. It doesn't matter their abilities or disabilities. Be patient. Wait. Respect people. If you see a person who's disabled, who's in a wheelchair, who has a cane, who has a walker, respect them in that position. Don't rush to form an opinion. Wait. Wait. And whatever your goals are, stay focused.
It's been a delight having you here. And the last question I'd like to ask you, Juanita, is how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as the person who cares about people, the person who's willing to help people, as the person who listen, reach out regardless of who they are. Don't look at color, age, disability, or abilities. People, whoever they are, wherever they are, reach out and see what you can do or I can do for them or what they can do for me. I would like to be remembered as that.
Thank you very much for coming here today and doing this interview with us. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me.